Okay, it's caucus day on the Hill, and that brings the seatless leader of the NDP to town to fire up his troops and stake his claim to pharmacare. And NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh joins me in the studio. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you back, Mr. Singh.
Great to be back, Don.
An interesting Health Committee report on pharmacare. $4 billion or so. Is that too high a price to pay?
Not at all. It's what we've been hearing before. We've known that this is the right direction for us to go as a country. We welcome the report, but what it shows is we don't need an additional study. The Liberals are talking about an additional study. We don't need that. What we need to do is do exactly what the report says. Let's implement universal pharmacare for all Canadians, not a Bay Street solution that benefits corporations, but something that benefits all Canadians.
So as taxpayers, in your view, should the taxpayer be the first call on the plan, or would they be the fill in the blanks for what's not covered already?
I think a plan should be one that's funded publicly, and we can make it as an investment. We can raise that funds through some of the suggestions we've offered, which is closing the tax loopholes, which mean that the ultra wealthy are not contributing their fair share. Closing some of those tax loopholes would give us the revenue to actually pay for this, and it's something very feasible and would help out so many Canadians that are struggling to get the medication they need.
But I'm looking at my Constitution. Isn't this a provincial jurisdiction, healthcare?
You would be very, very accurate.
I know
but
some things.
Much like our health accord, we can strike an agreement Canada-wide, make the agreement such that we can contribute a portion so that provinces would also be a partner in this and work towards a plan that is funded in part by the federal government or in a large part by the federal government, partnering with the provincial governments to create a plan that is accessible for all.
I don't know if this is the place to have a philosophical argument, but how far do we go as government providing things to Canadians, like all things? The nanny state unlimited, or where's the boundaries of what the government's responsibility is? Well,
for universal health care, this is exactly what governments are designed to do, to provide a social program that lifts everybody up. And we're the only country in the world that has a universal health care that doesn't have a pharmacare associated with it. I'd like us to complete the circle, have universal pharmacare, and then look beyond to seeing how do we complete healthcare so that it's completely holistic. Why not start looking at dental care, eye care, and mental health services to make sure that we have a truly holistic healthcare system?
We can afford all this, you think?
Absolutely. I think we cannot afford to not do anything about it.
I think it's interesting. The Liberals are having their big policy group hug in Halifax starting tomorrow, and there looks like an awful lot of ideas that sound awful familiar to me. And they seem to come from the NDP, things like decriminalizing all drugs, the idea of going after tax havens that you alluded to, guaranteed minimum wages, affordable housing. Do you worry that the Liberals are going to look an awful lot like the NDP going into the next election campaign if these policies become the platform?
Well, I'm proud of the ideas that we've led as New Democrats. I'm proud of the ideas that I put forward as leader, decriminalization and making sure that we take care of people when they need it. These are things that will make Canada better. So it doesn't matter who implements them, as long as it gets done. We're here to be champions for people, and these are things that people need to see happen. Housing is not something we can afford to wait another 2 years to receive the funding that we need to implement right now to actually tackle the housing crisis. We need to see some immediate changes, and whatever that means. If it means having a government be pushed by us to get to that point, that's great. If it means we're in government and we can make it happen, that's great. But the main thing is making sure that life is better for Canadians.
I think it's probably early to be looking at everything on Trans Mountain through an election lens, but if you do look at it through that way, you've got to wonder whether your one NDP MP in Alberta can survive the NDP's opposition to Trans Mountain. Do you worry about that?
Well, I look at it as a principle for how do we move forward as a country. And to move forward as a country, we need to have stable and predictable decisions around energy projects. What's happened is not acceptable. The complete neglect of environmental concerns around marine wildlife, around coastal oil spills, the impact of diluted bitumen oil, that type of oil spill, which is very difficult to clean up. Yep. These are real concerns, and if we don't address how we move forward as a nation to address the serious and legitimate environmental concerns with any project, we can have predictability, and that's what we need. So we're fighting for a more predictable, sustainable future that involves an environmental process that is independent and science-based.
Can you see a way clear? You've talked about going to the Supreme Court with this, or should this show go for a accelerated Supreme Court ruling? And BC's starting that. They filed a court case today on Alberta's move to choke off oil exports to that province. But I'm curious, if the Supreme Court says, yeah, you know what, this is federal jurisdiction, that pipeline should go ahead, does Prime Minister Jagmeet Singh say, yep, we tried our best shot, that's got to go ahead?
Well, this is exactly why I proposed a plan. I think it's as an option where we know it's going to end up. BC is going to bring a reference question to the Court of Appeal in BC. That means that question may be appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada. The courts will decide, and we will respect that, the decisions of the court. It doesn't mean that we won't continue to advocate for concerns around the environment, continue to advocate for concerns around how do we protect wildlife and marine diversity, and ensuring that we have the right plan in place to prevent any sort of environmental disaster. We'll always advocate for that, but of course we respect the rule of law.
But if the Supreme Court says green light, the NDP says green light.
We will accept any decision of the Supreme Court. It's the Supreme Court of the land, and so we'll accept that decision, but we'll continue to be advocates for the issues and values that we have.
A quick final point, Erin Weir, one of your MPs, he's been suspended from caucus duty 70 days ago today because of alleged misconduct. What have you found out?
Just to clarify, suspended from duties, but not from caucus.
No, that's true.
Yeah. So we've just recently received the report. We'll review that and then make a determination as soon as we can.
Quickly?
As soon as we can.
Because he doesn't, probably, okay. All right, well, we'll be keeping an eye on that and all these other issues. Thank you very much, Jagmeet. Appreciate you coming in.
Always a pleasure, Don. Thanks.
All right.